Yo, what is going on, you guys? It's your boy Three in this thing, baby. I'm here to talk about this deck, Memento. It's really insane. I like this deck a lot. I think that it is unexplored. There's like a lot of avenues that you could take with this deck from a deck builder perspective. It's very diversified. Its inboards are very good. The fact that the deck is resilient through multi-layered interactions, hand traps and engine included. The fact that the inboard is good enough to checkmate every matchup all across the board. There's not any deck that's not gonna struggle immensely against this deck's inboard. With the new support, it can actually put up 12 interruptions through 3 hand traps. I think the core is relatively cheap. It's really honestly like an insane budget option, an alternative to the fire deck. I think that this deck is very consistent as well. It has pretty much every Memento monster that is not like Sheepy and the Gaddick and the two guys that you never really want to draw. They're all one card starters, whether it's Mates or like Goblin or Blade or Witch or even the Tatsu. Oh my goodness, Tatsu no Chigo. Including Bone Party. That's like a 1.5 card combo. It's in archetype spells that are not the field spell actually allow you to dodge targeting effects. So yeah, I think that the deck actually is really insane. It has a very good high value engine. It's just a good value deck. I think that its engine has so many replacement effects and so many ways to capitalize with the resources that this deck allots you through multiple interruptions. It's able to capitalize so much on the ability to fuse from the grave, which is insane, and dish out all of the resources that you're using every turn over and over and over and put them back, spit them out, put them back, spit them out, put them back. And just the fact that this deck can do the same thing every single turn, like in a literal sense, outside of the generic links that you can summon, right? This deck can recycle its extra deck. It can recycle its main deck. It can loop its spells. It has really clean lines. This is a, if you didn't know, this is a spreadsheet deck. This is a deck where, like, you need to know your lines. Like, this is not one of those, like, this is not Ooga Booga at all. I think this deck is really, actually crazy. I kid you not. I'm going to be playing this deck along with the decks I'm already playing. So this is my current list. We're going to be getting these cards very soon. I cannot wait to get this card. I think this card's artwork is crazy. Memento Tiklan, Tech Luca. I'm just gonna call this guy Combined Conqueror. He is crazy. And by the way, if you guys didn't know what this guy does, I'm just gonna read him to you. Right, this is a new fusion that's coming out. He takes 3 Memento monsters. You can banish this card from your grave at their field spell from deck to hand. That's already insane. It's gonna get better. You cannot activate the following effects of Combined Conqueror or in the same chain. In the same chain, I'm sorry. If this card's fusion summon, you can send 3 Memento cards from your deck and or extra deck to the graveyard. Quick effect, target an equal number of Memento monsters you control and card your opponent controls, destroy them. This is going to destroy rogue decks. This is going to destroy combo decks. This is going to checkmate the Trap Labyrinth deck that is not really playing that many hand traps and is definitely setting 3 and passing very often. In phase, pop, 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 pop. This is also going to have insane multi-layered interactions on your opponent's turn. I cannot stress enough that this card did not have to have a negate to be good. In fact, this card's better than a negate. Spot removal in this game right now, especially because of the fire deck and the fact that the Labyrinth deck and the Voiceless Voice deck need specific cards to be in play in order for their engine to actually get its full value. If you're playing against Lab and they Ku Klok combo you, right? Or they Ku Klok on their turn, set up a furniture, and you just pop the Ku Klok, right? If you keep Labyrinth monsters off field, Ku Klok cannot actually get its bonus effect to allow you to activate a trap the turn set because you have to control a lab. If you're setting 3 and passing, you could pop Labyrinth's back row in the in phase and not have to worry about playing around them on your turn. If you play against even Voiceless Voice, popping all their continuouses, their barriers, and their blessings is actually insane. Chaining an effect to spot removal low in response to an effective ritual puts him on better have a second low. If you're playing against fire, all you need to do is just clear the snake eyes. Ash can't use his effect if he's not on field. You don't need to ash him. It's actually insane. Now, this deck has a couple of attributes that can be alarming, but the other aspect of this deck that I think is really unique and different is that its lines are safe playing into the Charmers because you're actually able to manipulate what you leave on your graveyard in your inboard, so you're checkmating certain cards that can have value playing into your board. So the fact that you can end on a board leaving no darks or lights in grave means the Charmers lose value, which is a really good aspect. And then on top of that, you don't care about Typhon whatsoever. The deck can pretty much do whatever it wants to do. It can end on pretty much whatever it wants to end on. I'm actually clicking with this build. I'm getting there. I'm just really giving coverage on my perspective on why this deck is definitely a menace. I think this deck is giving mad Black Air Force energy. Like, this deck is, I'm not even kidding. I would not be surprised if this becomes one of the top 5 best decks. There's so much potential here. The inboards are absolutely absurd. All these cards are broken. It has too many good cards for it to not be good. It's well positioned. I think this fusion does an insane amount of heavy lifting for this deck. Cranium Burst was already like an absurd card, very unfair. The other thing about this card that's like super annoying is while you control a Memento monster, your opponent's monsters that can attack must attack the Memento monster you control with the highest attack. That's really nice for combined creation, of course, but where does that get better? It means your boards where you're ending on IP Masquerade and Appaloosa, these cards can no longer be attacked over. So, of course, yeah, it's nice for your opponent to throw their battle phase and you know you're going to live a turn. But what's even more nice is that they can't break your board in the conventional means. And sometimes they don't know that this card does that, so a lot of the times you will be having that interaction come up. So this trap is actually even more broken than it looks. I just think that there's too many great cards in this deck with multiple effects. It has no business not being a tier 1 menace. It's too good. So we're going to continue talking, but yeah, that is in a nutshell, I think my hot take on how insane I think this deck is. So let's talk about the starters. We have Bone Party, which is a crazy card because it's not just an e-tele, it's like branded opening. You can either search or special, which is good. And also, you can banish this card from your graveyard, target a Memento monster. It can do piercing damage this turn. That actually really matters for combined creation. So that's a nice bonus effect. Don't forget about that. Because it's a quick play, you can play around Droll and draw phase. And also because it destroys a Memento from your head or face up field, this card can also not only play around Droll, but it dodges Impermanent Veiler, making this card, in the sense of playing through disruptions, better than branded opening. Because it's not only engine that beats non-engine, like Droll, but it's engine that beats non-engine and it beats engine. Because this can checkmate Princess, which could be really cool. Princess becoming a disruption to actually neuter your combo, that can be a problem, right? Clearing that body that you actually needed can be a problem, right? The trap to pop in the Voiceless Voice matchup. I mean, there's just so many applications for this card to dodge targeting effects that makes it the most superior starter in my opinion. I know it takes more cards to work, but because it plays around the most, it is the card I want to see in every opening hand. I'm also playing 3 Tatsunocho. This is the actual best Memento monster. You can get to Anguish, of course you can get to Dark Blade. These cards are really relevant, very powerful, strong standalone cards. That's nice, but the end goal is to actually resolve this card. And when your Anguish gets impermed, and you chain Bolt Party and they ash you, they get hard punished when you hard draw Tatsunocho because through 2 pretty decent quality hand traps you can full combo just by resolving this card. Because it is able to dump Gaddock and Sheepy because it's a level 5, and Gaddock can actually add back Sheepy, and Sheepy can summon itself and you can combo without having access to fusion. So this card does a lot. It's so multi-dimensional. on all of the different interactions with this deck's lines are actually insane. This deck can get hand trapped correctly and just play through it. So there's not a definitive choke point. It is very much giving fire deck vibes. You just scope whose hand's better, and that's how you know who's gonna win. Because if this deck's hand's good, it doesn't matter how or well you structure your plays when you're navigating this matchup. It doesn't matter if you hand trapped all the correct places. If you open enough engine, you're just gonna beat them anyways. So I love that aspect about this deck. Tatsunocho is very insane. You can summon it for free with no monsters, or it's an extender, which is what you want to use it as. You want to hold it as one of the last cards because you can play through a lot with this deck. And this card will get you there at the end of the day. We have 3 Anguish, which is not just a Rhoda, but a Reborn, which is crazy. We have 3 Darkblade. This deck has an E-Telly, right? Nah, there's another one. This is an E-Telly and also an MST. This matters because your inboards can get so much layered interaction because you're able to summon this off Bone Party when you already set up Anguish with your combined creation. So that creation can summon her, and you either get access to Mace if you need to, or you search the Sheepy if you didn't already have it. If you didn't have Sheep, 10 times out of 10, you're grabbing Sheep off of Witch, and you're summoning him off of Bone Party, using his effect to pop a back row. And it just goes crazy, honestly. So to have multiple effects on top of being a Lone Fire, I'm welcoming this. Sheep is also a really strong card. So, yes, you can play Prosperity in this deck, which is really nice. Yes, you can play Reinforcements of the Armor, of the Army to bolster consistency. I do think that having 12 1-card starters and multiple 1.5-card starters gives me enough consistency. Sheep is actually pretty crazy. So, we'll read this card because it's also new. If a monster in your possession was destroyed by a card effect this turn, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special, you can fusion summon a Memento Fusion from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you send 1 Memento card from your deck to your grave. This card is just steroids for the deck. This card is crazy. This card is actually insane. This card has to be in your hand at all times. It doesn't matter how you structure your inboard, you need to be ending on a way to access this on your opponent's turn. The fact that this deck can play so much on the opponent's turn is so attractive. It's hot. I love it. I love when decks can do that. I love when I can do what I need to do on my turn, and I can clean up on your field. I can check all the cards I need to check. I'm playing around the Charmers. I can either play into or around Typhon. I'm checking for hand traps. I'm playing through Ash. I'm playing through Nib. And then I'm going to meticulously craft my lines of play to beat the best engine cards that I know you more than likely will open. And then I get my follow-up by playing on your turn. It's pretty insane. I know that Fire can already do that, but this deck does it better. I think this deck does it in a cooler way. Like, summoning Twin Dragon on your opponent's turn is like way more fun than summoning Ash and searching Poplar. You know? It's just incredible. This card is phenomenal. I can't stress enough. Sheep has to be there. Has to. Also, opening Sheep allows you to beat hand traps even more. So, it's a really, really crazy card. Love it, love it. 1 of Mace. This card is still essentially a 1-card starter. You can destroy any card, like any monster that you have, and add a Memento card. He is a 1-of. You are welcome to play both Rhoda and 1-for-1 and Prosperity. If you feel, that you're playing with this deck and you're not opening enough gas, those are 5 cards that you can add in that can change it. I'm testing a little bit more non-engine because I think that the build is consistent enough. But if you have issues, those are 5 cards that you can easily add in to your theory crafting, and it might help you because these are level 1s and they are actually starters by themselves, which is really nice. Gaddock is a crazy card. Because this card is a fiend, it means everything, right? Because there's no other fiends. And this is a big deal because there's a super crazy line that this deck has that is literally involving going into Griffin and linking off the Griffin plus a bonus monster to get access to Sequentia, to use Sequentia to then fuse into the Performant and use Performant to then dump Barrier Statue. You're going to go crazier than that because you're going to take Sequentia and the Performant and you're going to link in a Yama. You can play the bricks that Yama comes with, or you just make Yama, link him in another body off into whatever you want to make, And what's going to happen is on your opponent's turn, because you're playing Momento, Bone Party's going to be popping your cards. You're going to be popping your cards with so many effects that whether or not you use Fracture Dance to trigger it, you're going to trigger Yama, right? And Yama's going to reborn the Barrier Statue of the Abyss, and you are going to basically Barrier Statue lock your opponent with Engine. Is it necessary? That's why it's not in the main deck, because I still don't know how necessary it is when, if I'm able to do that, my Engine already should be winning the game 10 times out of 10, because if I went uncontested, then my board was already good enough. It feels redundant, but it is nice for coverage, and it's cool that you can do that. So yeah, and post siding, I think you have to have it. Post siding, for sure. There's certain matchups where it's just like it's gonna help you a lot. So yep, this card is one of the reasons why you can end on 12 interruptions. I do summon this as an extender. I do bring it back, and I am popping this off of cards like Bone Party pretty often actually. So this card's gas. It's gonna allow you to pop 2 of your opponent's cards and 1 of yours. You do pop a lot of cards. Between this being an MST that triggers on your opponent's turn, this being just like a clear, like a board wipe, and also just having like Guardian Chimera and Combined Conqueror, it's pretty nasty how many cards you can clear. So it's really, really powerful coverage against combo decks that need their bodies to convert into cards that really do have the value that they need to actually be able to play in the first place. And this card is the king of the deck. He literally is a culmination of all of them. It's an amalgamation, I should say. And the card's superb. On the crackback, because this card is an inherit summon and it's putting all your resources back, your board can get completely broken. 10 times out of the 10, you're going to have Fusion Engrave, Bone Party Engrave, and they have to clear Field Spell or it's a problem. And this card just coming back out to be a threat to break the entire field by attacking over everything and then just popping him with Fusion to search makes this deck's follow-up, even in the worst case scenario, so superb. The crackback is just ridiculous with this card. And we're on 3 Fusion. It is a quick play. It can dodge targeting effects, which is pretty relevant, but you want to use it from grave every time that you can. The Field Spell is pretty busted, and you have to access it for almost every single line because you're going to be triggering its effect to Reborn a lot. A lot of your lines, you are going to be summoning Gaddock off its effect, but not using the add back, and then bringing it back off of the tick line. So you're going to be dumping cards like Cranium Burst, searching another Fusion off Fusion, and just resetting them with the Field Spell and adding back with Gaddock. And because there's so many hand traps, a lot of times in testing, I am actually just adding Sheep off Gaddock. You know, I'm doing it. Because even if I use Sheep on that turn, having Sheep in my hand, it's... If I have to pick between Mace, which is a crazy card because it's a snatch deal, that's crazy. I'm still picking Sheep. Every single time. The card's just ridiculous. It's just way too good. This card is Havness, right? That's just what it is. And then the Cranium Burst. This card is essentially very similar to Appaloosa. It just negates monster effects, but it only negates monster effects on the field. It does not actually negate the activation. It just negates it. And it specifically targets your creation. It loses the 1,000 attack and defense, and it negates that activated effect. So it's pretty cool. It's not going to destroy or it'd be too overtuned, but it's a really strong card, and it does protect you in battle phase. I'm on about 15 hand traps, which is pretty decent. The reason why I'm not playing 18 hand traps is because I personally... This is my hot take. I think that Talents is the craziest non-engine card in this format. You cannot change my mind. You're coping if you think I'm lying. Everybody's inning on Appaloosa. Everybody and their mom is inning on IP Masquerena. And everybody and their mom is playing upwards of 18 hand traps. What Talents does for me, if I'm going first, this is how I'm always going to be using Talents. If I'm going first in this format and I get hand trapped and I know I can play through another, I'm not going to Talents rip the hand trap. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to Talents rip the engine, play through the hand trap, and even if I play into Nib territory and I end on a half board, I'm ending on a half board against an opponent who needs to top deck and still lose because if I end on a half board, I still have disruptions. This deck plays Talents so well. I just think this card should say Memento in its name. You cannot play this deck and not play Talents. Because this deck plays through hand traps so well that it makes Talents, it's not a called by the grave or a cross out. This card is just taking engine. 10 times out of 10, I'm taking engine. And if I'm going second, you are insane because you just Appaloosa'd me and I'm taking your Appaloosa and I'm beating the hand traps that you have because you made Appaloosa. You want to activate IP Masquerena? That's fine, bro. It forces IP. It forces so much interaction because everybody and their mom wants to make Appaloosa. Talents has such high value because now I don't need to look at hand. I take. Now you'd better have an imperm. And now if you have hand traps, it better specifically be a hand trap for my engine and a chainable one like Valor or imperm so that my Appaloosa that I took from you would not be able to stop your hand trap. Which means now, not only did I play through the disruption that led you to playing into Talents, but you need 2 more to even be able to interact with my next action. Which implies that you need 3 to 4 more because I'm playing through the next one. I can't stress enough how powerful this card is. I'm really not drawing 2 at all unless my hand's poo. It's just crazy. This card's literally insane. And against the fire deck, what makes this even crazier is sometimes they only end on 1 fire. If you Talents take the fire, you cut off Princess, you cut off Flamberge follow-up, you're cutting off all the Snake Eye engine, and you can beat the Appaloosa, bro. It's crazy good. This card is so undervalued, underestimated, and there's just not any hype around it. This is so much. If I have to choose between having 2 hand traps and 1 Talents, I'm taking Talents every time. This is the best non-engine card in the game right now. You can't change my mind. You're coping if you think it's not. Play the card. Realize how much better your results are playing into boards with this card. It doesn't matter how many hand traps you draw. If you play against Snake Eye, they're going to play through it. And what's hilarious to me is that I can see someone playing Snake Eye get hand trapped 3 times, end on 3 interruptions and follow-up, and somebody can look at them and say, he misplayed. He didn't do it right. You can misplay and still end on that much? Nah, bro. I need a Talents. So the extra deck is 2 Combined Conqueror and 2 Twin Dragon. I think this ratio is perfect. You always are going to need a second one. This one, you just need 2 because of how he works. But Twin Dragon, you're going to need 2 because, like, you're going to be putting Twin Dragon back to make a Twin Dragon, and you always want to have 2. You never want to lose 1 to some random Bistio or anything like that and not have access to it. The card's crazy. Performant is for the goo. This card is pretty crazy, and it actually can be made by Memento Fusion, which is really, really cool, really, really nice, as well as Guardian Chimera can be made by Memento Fusion. This is a broken card. This deck does have a branded in red that's better, and it does have a branded opening that actually is better. It's more resilient. Yeah, opening just graveyard protection is pretty nice and niche in certain matchups, but opening doesn't beat Imperman and Valor, and I think that really speaks volumes about not only Bone Party, but also Fusion. I think still Brandon's a better Fusion deck, but I'm just saying, like, these cards are comparable to some pretty crazy engine cards, and they're better. Yama, pretty easy to make, pretty nice. Sequentia for the lines, you know what I'm saying, I'm cooking. Masquerena, SP Little Knight, Appaloosa, Nightmare Griffin. And by the way, just so you know, I don't like taking credit where credit is due. I did not come up with this line. I forgot who was cooking with this deck. I saw it. So this is not my combo. I did not think of this. I did think of the Barrier Statue lock. The person I saw doing this was using this to dump Gaddick. So I thought of the Barrier Statue. But what he was doing was he was linking off his Griffin, and he was popping with Fracture Dance or any of his Memento cards and triggering Yama to bring back his Griffin. What's also cool is the Performant Engrave can banish itself and bring back Yama for crazier follow-up. So if you're actually playing the Unchained engine, it gets pretty gnarly because you can Yama back whatever you want and then Performant back Yama and Yama add back Shavara, and that's just so much follow-up. So much follow-up because there's so much bodies that you can convert into whatever. And Griffin's just crazy this format. It really is. It's checkmating a lot of decks. Truly, it's hard for Voiceless Voice to do anything to a Griffin. It's actually very, very difficult for a lot of decks, including Branded, which is a really good deck. It's really hard because if you leave them those zones, they just can't do anything about it. I think Dark is the best Charmer of the format, so you have to play any deck that could make it should be playing it. It's always going to have value. It makes me want to play Celine because whether you have a Valor Engrave or not, you can make Darken more than likely take the Abel Star, and then obviously go straight into Access Code. So these are two cards that could take up slots. Like this Spice, these three cards really don't need to be here. I just think that line is super clean and it's fun, and that's the main thing. This deck's really fun. Cross Sheep, crazy combos, and then Typhon for the coverage. Thank you so much for watching my deck profile. I really, really am enjoying this deck. I think it's a very, very fun, refreshing deck. It's a breath of fresh air in a format like this. It has so much potential, and I would not be surprised if this deck was just started going crazy, just straight out the woodworks. So God bless you guys. Y'all have a beautiful day. Make good choices. Be safe. Hopefully you'll be seeing me soon. Peace.